Peace and blessings. Peace to all the massive and crew. Head to poo. Assalamu alaikum. Alafia. Bienvenue. Welcome. You are on the Jellyba channel, the African Ancestral Manuscript Jellyba channel. We're broadcasting live from the 416. We got some ancestral message. We got message there for your ancestors and they talk to you now. So là, il y a life go before. On a des messages des ancêtres qui veulent que votre vie s'améliore. Et on va raconter ces histoires dans la première personne. We're going to tell these stories in the first person. Okay, today's story is going to be Harriet Tubman. I know lots of you watched that movie, but she was doing what Sankofa is, going back and bringing the people out of enslavement into freedom. Going back, getting what's useful to you, to your tradition, using it in order to evolve into a better being. Especially going back to the pyramids and getting that ma'at, that centering divine law, and instilling it within your will so your heart is lighter than a feather. So we're going to drop it like this. I'm going to start with a sample poem from my last album. It's called Shearing, and it's all about ma'at. Eel. Ow. Enable words to come forward in the likeness of God. Paint pictures to impregnate your imagination with holy scriptures. I told Goddess to take this walk with me so that you could use these poems to prophecy and for you to hang on to each and every cacophony. The only possible outcome could be absolute liberty. Beyond these parables could only be my person's responsibility. Therefore, I repeat them repeatedly until they become part of the anatomy. And you can see them all over my body without any need for tattoo ink blurring me. I'm humbled to be in the presence of your divinity. I'll be even more humbled if we could listen effectively to our spirit's synchronicity. And if the truth comes out of my mouth, my person is merely its company. It's a lineage of truth, which the griots must speak as truth of the equation of eternity. And in my dreams, the Great Mother replenishes me with the breast milk of my indwelling divinity, in order for my inner eye to see clearly. Holding on to my higher self is slippery, but my person hangs on so tight, my spirit gets calluses. Bringing forth God is harder than mere analysis, especially for those lacking in spiritual paralysis, lacking higher moral fiber, in order to allow the flow of righteousness through their spiritual nest, and to grow metaphysically to the size of the Loch Ness. And even though I stray every now and then, I strive to stay focused and write scriptures with my pen, hoping that if I squeeze it tight enough, it'll liberate the God from within, demonstrating the true beauty of what we are all. Shearing, shearing, shearing. Sharing my Mary too. Give thanks to the goddess Ma'at. Give thanks to the essence of who you are. Let's get into this ancestral message for today. We're going to take it to Harriet Tubman, or if you prefer, Harriet Tubman. She was referred to as a Black Moses, but it doesn't make any sense because Tutmos was Black originally in the first place. So we don't need to replicate what he did. We already did it. So sometimes these little things people say, you got to be very careful because at the end of the day, they distance you from reality. So let me tell you the story. I'm going to read it for you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what she did. Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is perhaps the most well-known of all the Underground Railroad conductors. During the 10-year span, she made 19 trips into the South and escorted over 300, maybe even more, enslaved Africans to freedom. And as she once proudly pointed to Frederick Douglass, in all of her journeys, she never lost, now get this, she never lost a single passenger. Not a single passenger, not a single person. Tubman was born enslaved in Maryland's Dorchester County around 1820. At age 5 or 6, she began to work as a house servant. 7 years later, she was sent to work in the fields. So she used to be a house hen, and then she became a field hen. Like Malcolm X was saying, the house hen were those who, when Master got sick, they said, Master, we sick? Are we sick? When we gonna get better? And the field when the field ends, or the N word, Negroes, when Master got sick, instead of praying for him to get better, they prayed he died. They prayed he died the worst death possible because he was torturing them. So she became a field hen. While she was still in her early teens, she suffered an injury that would follow her for the rest of her life. Always ready to stand up for someone else, Tubman blocked a doorway to protect another field hand from an angry overseer. The overseer picked up and threw a 2-pound weight on her hand. It fell short, striking Tubman on the head. She never fully recovered from the blow, which subjected her to dizzy spells for the rest of her life. So basically, she was always trying to protect others. What a great woman. What a ma'at woman. Around 1844, she married a free black man named John Tubman and took his name. She was born Araminta Ross. Now, these names don't even make sense because it was the names of the slave masters or those kidnapping, crime committing, against humanity committing people. Later, she changed her name, first name to Harriet after her mother. In 1849, in fear that she, along with other enslaved Africans on the plantation, was to be sold, Tubman resolved to run away. She set out one night on foot. She followed the North Star, very important star, the North Star. Always follow it, you're always going towards the north. By night, making her way to the Pennsylvania and soon after to Philadelphia, where she found work and saved her money. The following year, she returned to Maryland and escorted her sister and her sister's 2 children to freedom. She made the dangerous trip back to the South soon after to rescue her brother and 2 other men. On her third return, she went after her husband, only to find that he had taken another wife. Undeterred, she found other enslaved Africans seeking freedom and escorted them north. So her heart must have been broken when she found that. But you got to keep on going. You got to be divine. You can't just, because her husband married another man, he didn't want her, she just kept on going, saved other people. Tubman returned to the South again and again. She devised clever techniques that helped her make her foray successful, including using the master's horse and buggy for the first leg of the journey. Leaving on a Saturday night, since runaway notices couldn't be placed in newspapers until Monday morning. Turning about and heading south if she encountered possible slave hunters, and carrying a drug to use on a baby if it was crying might attract attention on the fugitives. Tubman even carried a gun, which she used to threaten the fugitives if they became too tired and decided to run back, telling them, "You'll be free or die." Very important thing. Rather than you compromise the Underground Railroad and all the people who are going to be freed by your own laziness or your tiredness or your lack of courage, she would take you out herself because she knew that the whole was more important than the individual. Right? Freeing the people is more important than a single person. By 1856, Tubman's capture would have brought a $40,000 reward from the South. Imagine that amount of money. Same amount of money that, remember we are talking a little bit about Garrett Morgan. Same amount of money he got for his traffic signal. So remember, imagine back in those days, that was a fortune. You'll be set for life if you caught her. On one occasion, she overheard some men reading her wanted poster, which stated that she was illiterate. She promptly pulled out a book and feigned reading it. The ploy was enough to fool the men. Tubman had made the perilous trip to enslaved country 19 times by 1860, including one especially challenging journey in which she rescued her 70-year-old parents. 70-year-old escaping from being enslaved. It's never too late. It's never too late to do anything new. When your grandparents or whatever say, "Oh, I can't do this fitness," encourage them. Join the fitness class. At 70, you could be reborn. Of the famed heroine who became known as the Moses, Frederick Douglass said, "Excepting John Brown of sacred memory, I know of no one who has willingly encountered more perils and hardships to serve our enslaved people than Harriet Tubman." And John Brown, who conferred with her the title of General Tubman about his plans to raid Harper's Ferry, once said that she was one of the bravest persons on this continent. That's what John Brown said, who had plans to raid Harper's Ferry. He was a white man who really took it to mind that he wanted to end slavery. Becoming friends with the leading abolitionists of the day, Tubman took part in the anti-slavery meetings. On the way to such meetings, one of such meetings in Boston in 1860, in an incident in Troy, New York, she helped a fugitive slave who had been captured. During the Civil War, Harriet Tubman worked for the Union as a cook, a nurse, and even as a spy. After the war, she settled in Auburn, New York, where she would spend the rest of her long life. This brave, undefeated soul transitioned to the ancestral realm peacefully in 1913. 1913, just as the First World War was breaking out, or the First European White War was breaking out, that's when she transitioned. Okay, So that's Harriet Tubman, Harriet Tubman, one and a half of a person. Never did she have any of her people she helped escape enslavement captured. Can you imagine? That's divine protection. She was working with the divinity. She was working with our divine ancestors. She was calling up the spirits. And that's what we got to do. We got to free ourselves like Harriet Tubman did. Nowadays, it's not that physical enslavement that we're freeing ourselves from. It's that mental entanglement. We're in the Sebek cycle. Sebek is represented by dogs, but also as a counterpart of Anansi that's represented by the spider. And there's a web which the spider wields. And that web, when animals or insects get caught in it and they try to get out, they think they're getting out, but they're only getting more entangled. So we need people like Harriet Tubman to clearly see the North Star and enable us to be free of the shackles of enslavement, of this society going in the wrong direction and full of darkness. We definitely need our children to see the light. And with people like Harriet Tubman steering the wheel and them learning about her courage, I'm sure they will be able to replicate these feats. Once again, I like to say shalom, I say peace, I like to say ashe to the spirit of Harriet Tubman. May we carry our energy as we move forward and be blessed always. This great woman, we got to tell her story, not just his story. We got to make it our story. Remember that his story, like Napoleon said, is an agreed upon lie decided on by the colonizers to keep the colonized colonized, to keep the enslaved enslaved. And Jellyba Channel is to tell you the story from your ancestors' perspective, no longer to keep you enslaved, but to enable you to free your higher genius and succeed beyond measure. So I'd like to say thanks, peace, and blessings. Ashe, keep on walking the path of truth and ma'at, and keep on being enlightened and hearing the wisdom of ancestors who are enlightened, such as Harriet Tubman. Once more to her spirit, I say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Peace and blessings. Hetapu, have a beautiful evening, and continue tuning in for the next story on the Jellyba channel. It's coming very shortly. Ashe.